Hello, everyone, especially hello, business leaders. I welcome you to the Lead with Neetu Business and Leadership podcast. I'm Neetu Choudhary, your host, and I'm delighted to have you today with us. Today, we have a very special guest, and I heard his one of the keynotes, and I loved it. And that's after that, I was behind him to bring him on this podcast for our discussion. So finally, we managed this time. And let me introduce you to our very special guest today, Dr. Bhaskar Dasgupta. He is principal of the Sun Foundation, an ADGM based single family office in Abu Dhabi, a highly sought after independent chairman, one non-executive director, advisor across banking, markets, crypto, asset management, healthcare, and technology. So you can think of any part of the business, he is an expert in that one. He currently chairs and advises a range of globally regulated firms and platforms and works closely with family businesses in UAE, India, UK, and across the globe on deploying capital into funds, real estate, and startups. Dr. Bhaskar is a key ecosystem voice in this region. He serves as chairman of the Middle East Stablecoin Association, the secretary of Middle East Investment Management Association, and teaches and sits on advisory board at universities in UK, UAE, and India. He was Chief Operating Officer of UK Export Finance, following senior roles at HSBC, ABN, AMRO, Citigroup, and PwC. And Dr. Das Gupta holds multiple, that's why I think he need to have multiple doctors with his name. So Dr. Das Gupta holds multiple doctorates spanning financial modeling, AI, tourism, politics, and history of species. So we are going to discuss about that as well. And that brings a unique interdisciplinary lens to how capital, risk, and culture intersect in business. So let me welcome Dr. Das Gupta. Thank you so much for giving your time today.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
You know, when I was going through your profile and I saw that there is a chief mischief officer. So I was very curious about it. And can you please elaborate that what it is?
Well, I'm kind of semi-retired. I don't have a job, but it's too early for me to be thoroughly retired. Um, so my job is to have fun, and
Wow.
and what better way to express that than by saying I'm a chief mischief officer. I I go and do mischief and basically have fun. So that's what it means.
Wow. And
It's
that
not
stands out actually.
it's just not breaking things, but I do mischief. I like to have fun, make people smile, but hopefully also think a bit onto what's happening in the world or with strategy. There you go.
That's great. And if somebody doesn't know, like they have not heard your this big introduction and your wealth of knowledge, so how would you introduce yourself in one or two line? Like, who is Dr. Das Gupta?
So I just say I'm semi-retired, and I help build businesses. So those are a couple of main things. Other than that, I love to study, and I love to talk. I mean, that's what retired people do. They love to talk. They love to bore people. Happy days.
No, I would disagree on this one. And I want to tell our audience, if you get opportunity, please listen to his keynotes if anywhere, because he speaks a lot, and follow him on LinkedIn. That's what I was going through. And like I was seeing all his posts, brilliant work. Like if you're not reading it, you're missing out on some very important information.
Thank
So,
you.
yeah. Dr. Bhaskar, you sit on and chair multiple boards based on your experience. What are the top three things you look before joining any board for a company?
So look, as a ex-regulator, well, let me take a step back. You see, at this moment, the only thing I have is my reputation.
Hmm.
That's the only thing I need to protect. Everything else is fine. I can live without it. So first and foremost, view of whether or not I should be associated with a company is it going to impact my reputation? And it is important to me um, because this is a hygiene factor as an ex-regulator, ex-banker, ex-civil
Yeah,
servant, and still a relatively long sort of journey ahead of me. If my reputation is ruined, everything else is ruined.
that's
So,
right.
uh, and from a dharmic perspective, I try and do the right thing. Is it a good and kind company to work in? I mean, you won't find this in a scale, but these are some of the things that I think about in the first instance. The second, as an ex-regulator, I like to see the audit reports. I like to see the annual reports. I like to see the turnover of senior staff or directors. So that's a control function. The third thing that I see is, and it depends upon what role I'm going to be doing. If I'm going to be doing the chair role, then I want to sit down and understand the CEO. Uh, I need to work very closely with that person. And don't get me wrong, I mean, I'm perfectly happy to get rid of the CEO if needed. And I've done that before. Remember, my responsibility on the board is towards the shareholders, the employees, the stakeholders, the regulators. I am not beholden to the promoter or the CEO. So, but the CEO is a very important person for me to know. I also need to then understand whether or not I believe in the business model. A couple of other factors come in. Um, I'm usually an operator investor. I would go in and invest. And it doesn't necessarily just mean money. I will invest my time as well. I'm an old man. I'm extremely parsimonious with my time. So I want to make sure that the time I invest is I'm investing for a good purpose. So these are some of the things that I look at. The final thing I see is I have a fairly extensive network, and the question I ask myself is, am I going to add value or not? If not, then what's the fun? Nah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's great. That's great. And the other day I was having some discussion, and human factor plays such an important role. Like we look at as you mentioned, that you look at the audit report, annual report, as well as the turnaround of the senior professionals, senior leaders, those who are in the business, and what is the rapport between the board and the CEO. So human factor definitely plays role, especially in the age of AI, when everything is like automated. Still, the human factor will be the most predominant factor to take decisions. Yeah, the human dynamics are always there.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So when you look at business in last 3 years, because a lot of people are starting their business and some are successful, some are not. So when we look at the last 3 years of data and based on your experience, what are the dominant patterns, or what are the predominant factors are there which define any business success or the failure? And it is other than the market condition or geopolitical tension or anything else. What are the three factors do you feel that define success or failure of a business?
So that's a good question that you have asked. I think the first thing is, in Hindi, they say, "Funde clear hai ki nahi hai?" Are they clear about their strategy?
Huh.
right? The strategy will change. Don't get me wrong. Strategy will definitely change. But are you clear about your
Yeah.
strategy? If you keep on chopping and changing it, then it's not a good sign, right? Uh, I
Yeah.
define that
I
as the
love this.
Columbus syndrome. The Columbus syndrome is you start off not knowing where you're going. On reaching, you don't know where you are. You come back and you don't know where you have been. And you bring back things that were totally wrong, like tobacco and potatoes and stuff like that, and you do it on somebody else's money.
Hmm.
So if you're not clear about your journey, then you're not going to be successful. But if you're clear about your journey, where you are, what you want to do, where you want to reach, and it will change. But you need to know. If you don't know, then it's gone. That's the first thing. The second thing is an absolute insane focus on two things. The first and foremost thing is cash flow.
Hmm.
That is one thing that I'm an absolute nut about. Absolute nut. The vast reason why companies fail is because of cash flow. And if your
Hmm.
cash flow isn't managed well, it's a bad sign. If you manage it well, it's a very good sign. And the corollary to that is what I was called as the margin. And I know the EBITDA is defined in 100 different ways. But at the end of the day, whatever mechanism you take, what is the revenue compared to your cost or your cost income ratio is something that you want to see. For
Hmm.
me, anything less than 50%, I'm not happy. Then the reasons for success, talent. What I look for are good CEOs. My biggest issue is the dearth of CEO level people.
Hmm.
I, 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 I'm faced with a bewildering array of people who are bureaucrats. Don't like them because bureaucrats cannot handle change. And believe you me, right now
Hmm.
change is coming, and we'll talk about that in a moment.
Yeah.
But if you're not capable of change, um, it's that company isn't going to be successful. I've seen people who are enthusiastic, optimistic, clear-sighted. Those are things that define the success of a company.
That's brilliant. And as you were speaking, I was thinking that you sit as a board member on many family businesses as well. And especially when we talk about family business, that attitude is here. This is what we have done. And I'm the boss. I started it. Even if it's a third generation, I've started it. I'm not going to change. And on the other end, you're talking about the change is coming, like whether you're ready or not, it's coming. So, how, as a board member, you balance both things?
See, here's the problem. I mean, you're absolutely right. Family-owned businesses, which are the majority,
Yeah,
95,
it's more than 60%
93%,
GDP.
right? The vast majority of companies are privately owned. Heck,
Yeah.
my companies are privately owned, and I'm on the other side, right? Where I would say that sort of this is how I've been successful. I don't usually, and for reasons that we'll talk about, but some promoters absolutely do that. And I will go back to what I said is that I'm very parsimonious with my time. I will tell them 3 times. If they don't listen, I will walk away. I don't have time. I
Yeah.
might be wrong. There's a strong chance I might be wrong, and it has been proven I have been wrong, and whatever I said didn't come true. But that's fine. I mean, look, we don't have to agree on everything, but thankfully I'm at a position that I can walk away. What a lot of
Hmm.
people can't walk away because they are dependent upon the director fees or the consultancy fees or the salary that they get, and you're not able to get away from the Lala or the Munshi or the family office principal who said, "This is how I ran it. If you don't like it, out." Yeah,
Hmm.
fine, out. Bye.
That's interesting. And in family owned businesses as well, we have CEOs, and you have appointed, like, you have recruited many CEOs. So, do you prefer in house, or like somebody who has seen the culture of the company and that person has evolved to become CEO? Or do you prefer to bring somebody from outside, like what Microsoft has done with other companies, to bring them from outside so they bring a different perspective for to bring new ideas and new strategies? And what qualities do you look into the CEOs? Because our majority audience are CEO here. So what exactly you look for in that?
Um, so to answer your first question, there is no hard and fast rule whether you should promote from inside or bring in people from outside. See, there is a slight preference for you to promote from inside.
Okay.
But then that means that your company is relatively stable. It has got succession planning. It's got plan B and plan C and plan D. And people at the top know that they will retire or move up or out.
Hmm.
That kind of clarity of thought is not available in most companies. But if there is, then I would prefer to promote from inside. The second thing, and this is an explicit bias I have, I prefer to either promote or appoint women. I just find them better managers and leaders. Guys, including me, they're ugly ass guys. They don't work properly. Women are anytime better leaders at this, and they can actually manage uh, ambiguity, unclear situations, because uh, that's just my preference. So
Hmm.
the majority of my CEOs are women, and I absolutely encourage them to do these things. Now, to go back and talk about your second answer, your second question, what is a good CEO? First of all, as I said, the type of CEO you need and the type of CEO you want and the type of CEOs that are available and the type of CEOs you get are on four different planets.
Hmm. That's true.
So you will never have the ideal person at the right time, at the right phase, willing to join you at the right time of their career for the money that you are paying them. So you will have to compromise.
Hmm.
But few things I like and I prefer. One is um, I like people who are optimistically paranoid.
I love this. Yeah.
The second thing is please be interesting.
Hmm.
The third thing is I love people who are good risk managers,
Hmm.
and I love people who are good project managers. Risk managers mean that you anticipate problems that are coming down and come to me, talk to me. Uh,
Hmm.
Me chairing the board, I want to work with you. But I want you to be open and honest about things that can go bump in the night.
Yeah.
The second thing is project management. Project management is all about delivery. Everybody has got constrained resources. So I need you to be a good project manager. And I tell my CEOs, and most of them don't, but anybody who's done a project management course immediately becomes a better CEO.
Hmm.
Immediately. If there is one thing that I would encourage every CEO to do, is to do a half a day risk management course and a 2 day project management course. Your delivery skills, your execution skills will double, if not quadruple.
Wonderful. I love this. And as you mentioned that you prefer female CEOs, and there could be some biases, or maybe you are coming from like West Bengal, that's why like predominantly female are there and Goddess Durga is there. So when we talk about the neuroscience perspective, female are very good in managing risk, and they when we talk about risk, two factors are there: impact and liability, likelihood. So they look at more on the impact side, while the male brain looks at more on the likelihood, that what are the chances of succeeding. So as a board member, how do you see the difference by how the male and female manage it? Because female brain always goes back to, do I have enough resources, especially in time of crisis. Their risk taking capacity reduces, like what we are experiencing currently. Geopolitical stress is there, and before that the COVID was there. So how do CEOs or the board members take that as an opportunity rather than as a risk, that okay, things are not working out but we can still excel there? So how do you see male and female CEOs to see this thing differently?
See, first of all, with my economist hat on, it's a very logical decision to take to select women CEOs. Why? Because women CEOs or leadership potential is not recognized by the industry.
Yeah,
So what I get for the same amount of money and effort, somebody who's 50% better than an equivalent man.
I love this.
It's an arbitrage. I
Yeah,
know women wouldn't like listening to this, but I'm being very honest. As an economist, it just simply makes more sense. For the same amount of money, I have a bigger pool of better candidates. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, I actually don't really see it the way you described it. You see, I know we are talking about these are cultural factors and opinions, but for me, the fact that women are much more diligent and dedicated and detail oriented means that they not only look at what I would call as the impact, but also the mitigating actions and what is left.
yeah,
And I can rely on them to keep on coming back to me truthfully to say, Dr. B, we identified this risk, we put in this mitigation, but it didn't work out. Frequently, men wouldn't, but women,
yeah.
women do, right? So these are some of the things that I've seen. Now, on the flip side, you are absolutely right. Men do end up taking more risks. Okay, um, but then I'm there. I'm the guy who's going to be pushing.
Yeah,
Uh, I keep on telling my boards as well as myself, we need to be about 10 to perhaps 15% unreasonable. Maybe a bit more, but
mm,
I have to be unreasonable. Because if I'm not unreasonable, progress wouldn't happen. Otherwise, it's just
exactly.
comfortable. I'm just a bureaucrat. I'm just going to keep on having the same bloody thing every quarter, every month.
Yeah,
At the end of the day, as Keynes said, productivity is everything. For the same amount of inputs, every quarter, every month, every day, I need to learn something. I need to achieve a bit more.
mm,
So I'm constantly pushing. I'm thoroughly pushing. I People complain. Tough, suck it up, sunshine. This
yeah.
is this is not a joke.
That's wonderful. And when you said be 10 to 15% unreasonable, this reminds me of another study of honeybees actually. In their group, the 10 to 15%, exactly the same number, they just don't go for the picking, bringing the nectar, but they randomly roam around. And the reason research has shown is that because if this area gets like filled and there are no more flowers left, so these 10 to 15%, they look for another territory. So in case of crisis, they can just go and find it. So that completely makes sense actually. Million-year-old honeybee is doing exactly the same thing.
I mean, once a month, I personally and tell others, do something that makes you genuinely uncomfortable.
I think
The
very few
problem,
board members say that to CEOs.
no, it's personally as well. Otherwise, you become comfortable,
Yeah,
and it doesn't need to be business anyway. learn a new language, climb a
Hmm.
mountain, run 20 kilometers instead of 10, uh, read a mathematics book, do something that makes you uncomfortable. Your
Yeah,
biggest issue is yourself, not others.
that's right. The other day I was reading a book, and in that the quote was there. I forgot the book name. The quote was that you have to get out of your way. Actually, you are the one who's blocking your own progress. So that's the thing. And you sit at the crossroad of family offices, like whether it's a private equity or the venture capital firms, and you're the regulator and the asset manager as well. So when you look across those tables, what are the smartest capital allocators quietly CEOs are doing in 2026, which the others are not copying it yet? So what are the biggest decisions are being done on this front?
So the first and foremost thing is what AI is doing to your business.
Hmm.
The vast majority are using AI for prompts at best.
Yeah.
So I actually started to run training courses, and the first thing that I did was to train my CEOs to do three things. The first thing was, in your company, everybody should be using AI. The second thing, which is a 3 month time frame, is that one substantial process should be totally re-engineered. Something should be re-engineered bottoms up. It could be sales, it could be production, it could be inventory, it could be marketing, it could be business development, it could be service management. I don't give a toss. Choose one process and totally re-engineer it using AI. And then within 6 months, I want you to come in and disrupt your own business model. Now, that could be your own business model, or you go and invest in some other company, or you form a joint venture where the thing that you are doing is completely reimagined. So, to go back to what you were talking about or you asked, vast majority are still at the prompting stage.
Hmm.
Some people, maybe 10 to 20% of companies, are at the re-engineering or process stage. One, possibly 5% are at the change in the business models phase. So that's one way of looking at it. The
Hmm.
second way of looking at it right now is that the geopolitical risks and macroeconomic risks have gone through the roof. So the question that comes up is that what is your cash position? People are not focusing on their cash flow. That worries me. It's not today's cash flow. I'm talking about tomorrow's cash flow. People are not anticipating what your cash flow is going to be. That seriously worries me, and I'm going to explain why. The reason why is that in the medium term, demand, according to current business models, is vanishing. Investors are sitting on cash. Warren Buffett has got the largest cash pile ever. Why? Have a think about it. Why does he think it's good for him to have literally billions of dollars stuck in a money market fund? Then there is the second order effects. Because of the macroeconomic reasons or the geopolitical reasons, consumer spending is starting to slow down. Investment is starting to slow down, which basically means cash flow is going to get impacted. So, what are you going to do? I don't see, people are not seeing that. And this is what I absolutely am a pain in the backside of all my companies. Where is your cash flow going in 6 months' time or 12 months' time? And it's those CEOs who are paranoid, those who are optimistic but paranoid, they are thinking things through. what can
Hmm.
happen, what will happen, how much am I going to hit. So to summarize your answer, first thing is AI impact, and second is the way business models are going to operate is changing. So not many people have pivoted to that.
That's true. And like when you mentioned about the re-engineering a process, also a lot of things we might be doing currently which are irrelevant, but we are doing because it has been done for ages. And when we re-engineer it, I think that we will realize this is what we were wasting time, and AI will help us to expedite those things. That's true. And when you talk about the cash flow, actually, I was thinking that because last week I was having a discussion with someone, and we were having the same thing that we have to be paranoid, because there was a book here with me which I was reading. It's only paranoid would survive. So, yeah, that makes sense. We have to be little scared. Like, this again reminds me of one of the studies. The fishes which are in ocean, they live longer because they constantly face challenge, and that's what keeps them active compared to the fish tank, because if they are safe, they don't have many challenges there. So you have worked in London, Abu Dhabi, and across global banks as well. So if you are a CEO deciding where to place your next bet, whether it's a geographical location, product, or the asset class, what are the signals do you watch that do not appear in the documented strategy decks currently in businesses?
So yeah, I think I've lived, worked, traveled, and invested in more than 100 countries now, and I travel very
Yeah.
frequently. So one of the things that at least this war has come up is, and I spoke about this with a very close friend of mine, and we're going to be releasing a podcast on this, is the return of geography. Um, Geography has come back into the picture. COVID showed it, and the Iran war has showed it, that
Yeah.
geography matters. I mean, in economics, you were talking about the theories. There's a theory called as the gravity model. Look it up. There is a reason why countries would trade which are next to each other. But just because we were so heavily engaged in services and we thought, geography doesn't matter anymore. Oh, yes, it does.
Hmm. It
Because
does.
think about it. Uh, I was looking at something today and I found it quite ironic. Uh, I'm an immigrant, right? I come from a family of immigrants. My great grandfather was from Burma and then he moved to Bangladesh. And during partition time, they all moved to Nepal. And from there, they moved to India. From India, I went to the UK. From UK, I traveled and lived and worked in the US, in Hong Kong, Singapore, all over the world. And then I moved on to Abu Dhabi. Who knows where I would be? Immigrant. I wouldn't call myself as an expatriate. Expatriates are people who get a bit more money. But I'm
Hmm.
basically an immigrant, right? Two things. Uh, you saw what happened in the US and in West Bengal. In the US, with the H-1B bombshell that exploded, everybody's
Yeah.
now worried that we have to go back to India and apply.
Yeah.
And after the political change that happened in West Bengal, all the immigrants from Bangladesh are going back.
Hmm.
Return of geography. People are not willing to open borders. So whether it's people movement or goods movement, you saw what happened with the tariffs.
Yeah.
So goods movement changed, and with services, it further changed because within services, you started to have regulators who started to say you have to keep the data inside, or for example, you had an attack on submarine cables
Hmm.
or on cloud centers. So geography has come back. So what you have to do is to now take a look at where is your data, technology, food, clothing, shelter, security. all these things. Where is that stack going to be? And the geography is quite important. Your second point that you asked for was about which product, okay, or on the asset class. Looking at private equity and venture capital are suffering. And believe you me, 4 years, 5 years back, I was a big rah-rah person. No, private equity, love it. Venture capital, happy days. I have invested in so many. I'm on the board of so many. My fund platforms support a ton of them. And it is tough. Life for private equity and venture capital is tough. I was going to launch a private credit fund last year, but I stopped. And I was just joking to one of my partners saying, there, but for the grace of God go I. Because if I had launched a private credit fund, I would be suffering.
Yeah.
That said, I still like to take some bets. I'm still open for real estate. I'm still open for public equities, especially in high productivity countries like US. I am still open for product areas which are specific. So, for example, defense funds. Makes sense, right? There's quite a lot of investment. We are going back to the mean, so we'll be doing much more there. So, in terms of the asset class and the product areas, so public equities is good. I'm very bullish on real estate, and then, as I said, certain asset classes are pretty good. Energy is good. Defense is good. I'm a huge believer in virtual assets and stable coins and things like that, because I think that entire sector is getting thoroughly disrupted, and I love it. For a chief mischief officer like me, where the rules of the game are changing, then the people who are optimistically paranoid and can move fast and have got cash and capital will win out.
That's fun. What is the craziest decision you have ever done which has given a very good result later? Like, people called it crazy, but you did it and it was a brilliant decision. Later they realize it. Not necessarily finance related, anything in life.
Crazy decisions. I mean, like moving down to Abu Dhabi was an example. One of the best decisions of my life. I consider myself to be absolutely privileged to be here. Absolutely privileged. Best decision in my life, another one was when I first landed in Manchester from India. One of my Indian friends said, Bhaskar, one of the issues that immigrants or expatriates or students do is when they land in another country, they tend to stick with their own. So for every one Indian that you meet, make sure you have got 4 to 5 non-Indian friends. That gave me quite a lot of benefits. Other decisions, for a long period of time, I used to cut my own hair.
Okay.
I bought a trimmer, and I would just go bzz, 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 and just make sure that I catch my mother or my wife or my daughter when they are in a good mood. Okay.
Yeah.
It is very important that you catch them in a good mood. If they're in a bad mood, they will cut you. I mean, women are brutal when it comes to that. In terms of pure percentage return, if you assume that each haircut costs, let's say, $25, my best investment was investing in that $20 trimmer. I still have it over there. I still use it. It's the best return of $20 I ever had.
I love this. I love it. Yesterday night, my daughter, after coming from her match, she wanted, for last one week, she's asking me and my husband, can I cut your hair? And the thing is that my hairdresser is on vacation for 1 month. So I told her, let him come back. Then you do it one day before I go for hairdressing so that everything is fine. And yesterday night, she has actually cut, but she cut it very small. So it's still not seen. And I'm waiting for my hairdresser to come back from vacation.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
love this one actually. We and what you're saying, it resonates with what you said earlier. Like take risk, just go ahead. 10 to 15%, just go ahead and take some risk and do some crazy stuff out there. And another thing I saw is that you operate at the very top end of the wealth with Sun Family Office, and also at the entry level, the Rudo Wealth where you operate, like you work with them. So, what has that range taught you about how people really experience risk compared to how risk model describes it? So, how do you see the range of risk in between these two things?
Um, if I may, I think the question could potentially mean slightly differently. I might be wrong, but please correct me if I'm wrong. But I think what the risk models actually measure is what is your perspective towards money.
Hmm.
And one of the things that I started to do with my kids is that I started to teach them about money and investing from the time that they were 10 years old. Um, and this is the problem that I see, and this is becoming bigger and bigger, is that people tend to look at wealth in very different ways. One is wealth is there to be shown off. You wear labels because of what others will think of you.
Hmm.
That's a very stupid reason for spending money. But then, your mileage might vary. You are dependent upon your self worth based upon what others think of you, which is fine. You know, if that is the way you want to do it, you want to do it. The other thing is you may actually end up earning more by spending less.
Hmm.
So people keep on trying to earn more and more, but they keep on spending more and more. The third thing, and this is going to sound very bad, is that they get into debt far too easily.
Yeah.
Uh, the fourth thing is that they only have one source of income. I mean, the number one thing that anybody who talks about finance is diversification. And you look at people who work in financial markets and their entire source of income is just one. How? Seriously? You need to actually get your money to work more for you. So go for
Hmm.
dividend paying stocks or have assets such as rental income. You have to diversify away your sources of income. And the last thing that I keep on saying is that you will never become wealthy as long as you are a salaried person,
Hmm.
mostly. I'm not talking about the hedge fund PMs who get millions of dollars of salary packages. But the vast majority of people, you will never get rich by on a salary,
That's right.
never get wealthy. You only get wealthy when you own a piece of the business. And I don't mean public equities. I mean actual owning a piece of business, 2%, 5% minimum. That's how you become wealthy. And there's
Hmm.
nothing wrong with being wealthy. I'm intensely relaxed about it. I've been poor. I'm a refugee's son. I've gone through years where we just had one meal a day, and I've seen my father cry because my sister asked for mangoes and he was not able to afford it. So the to summarize what I see from Rudo Wealth and things like that, and that's why I'm very committed to this, is that I want to bring financial independence to people. And for that, you save like an absolute idiot. Absolute idiot. Create your pension fund. Stuff it. And in most countries, a pension fund is the best investment ever because the government tops it off.
Hmm.
And whatever money you have got after you've got your emergency stash, you start investing in businesses. You have to have a diversified investment. But that is what I'm going to say. Now, going forward, the situation is going to be even worse because look at the amount of layoffs that's happening.
Yeah.
My companies are stopping paying bonuses. They're cutting salaries. Again, goes back to the cash flow. So um, challenges are going to come. Start saving money. Start generating additional sources of income.
That's so interesting. And this I heard it somewhere that salary will not make you starve, but it'll make sure you don't become wealthy. So when you were saying that, line came to my mind that salary will make sure we don't starve, but we'll not become rich also as well in that one. And when I was reading one of your articles, you have mentioned that civilizations, uh, the money has been the civilization's operating system. So if you take this to the CEO level and we say that this is an operating system, how they can use the money as a operating system for building app or infrastructure, moving the world, that can take either the civilization forward or do something bigger for the world. So, what is the role of money in moving the civilization? That's my curiosity. Is
So, look, I mean, one of the main things that distinguishes us from other living beings is the fact that we understand the concept of money.
hmm.
It's a value. I mean, previously we used to have cowries, we used to have beans, chocolate
Yeah.
beans. We had to add stones. We had silver. We had gold. We had shells. But we ascribed a value to it, and it was a measure of civilization. Yes, there are other measures as well. Don't get me wrong, paintings or longevity or health
Hmm.
or the fact that we would start caring for people. I mean, like one of the good things is was a question that was asked to one of the anthropologists was at which point in time did a human being get civilized? And they basically said we found this bone, leg bone, that was repaired or it got repaired. At before that, if your leg was broken, you would die.
Hmm.
But if your leg was broken and it got repaired, that means you had a family around you who would hunt for you, cook for you, look after you. That's where civilization started. Okay. Another one is the famous quote about you judge your civilization by the way you treat animals. There are different
Yeah.
ways of measuring civilization. Okay. But money is a common factor. So what it does is that it allows everything to be reduced down to a unit, and that unit is a good way to measure progress, changes, projects, products, business models, whatever. So I know I'm being very privileged, and I'm speaking from the perspective of a person who's made it. Uh, but it's just a measure. So you run with that way.
You have, since we are talking about the civilization, and you have worked across the globe with different CEOs from different nationalities, different countries, what pattern do you see in certain regions that because of their upbringing or their culture or being in that country specifically, how do you see it differs, like the way CEOs make decision, whether it's India, it's UAE, it's UK or US or anywhere in the world? Does that culture that impact the decision making?
Oh, hugely, hugely. At obviously there are levels that everybody will do. All right. So money is one. Accounting is
Yeah.
another. That will force everybody to act in the same way. I talked
Hmm.
about cash margins. Every CEO is going to react the same way. But then there are quite a lot of cultural aspects that come in. Um, so, for example, in India, the concept of jugaad comes in quite often.
Yeah.
Quite often. Here in Abu Dhabi or in the UAE or in the Gulf, honor matters, face
Yeah.
matters. doing the right thing matters. Um, in Europe, environmental conditions matter quite a lot. In US, productivity matters, and they are much more comfortable with failure, that quite a lot of other countries don't and could learn from. There's also, for example, philanthropy or CSR, or
Hmm.
charity. Um, in certain countries like UK or US, everybody does charity. They don't
Hmm.
actually have to put a target like what we have seen in certain countries. You have to spend 1% of your revenues on charity.
Hmm.
That is forced charity. That is different. That is culturally different. Um, I mean, if you read Tocqueville, who described what US was in the 1800s, he talked about civil society. In so many countries, civil society doesn't get engaged. So these are societies who societies or groups who actually do things. Um, One very common example is what happens when you see a chewing gum wrapper on the pavement.
Hmm.
Okay. Second thing is another cultural difference comes up. How much is your women participation rate? Okay. Uh, Another example is, what is the proportion of your retired people who live with their families? So
Hmm.
cultural factors matter quite a lot, and it depends. So yes, there are huge differences, and it's infinitely interesting and variable.
And as a board member, it's very important to understand that culture before we go ahead, because that has a very predominant impact on decision making, other than the numbers as well.
Yeah, the vast majority of boards will not do a board effectiveness review.
Yeah, I
It
think
is.
that's
You just don't evaluate yourself.
exactly. That's right. And one of the keynotes I attended, one of your keynotes where like I loved it actually. You spoke about the ultra high net worth and the funding, from what top mistakes people do usually when they go for funding, request for funding from family offices or the ultra high net worth individuals. So, what are the errors which anyone can avoid, especially the new entrepreneurs, when they go for these fundings from ultra high net worth individuals?
So wealthy people drive. They have three priorities. The first one is whether or not my wealth will be preserved.
Hmm.
I don't want to lose my principal. People forget that. Second thing is, how am I going to pass my name or my wealth down?
Hmm.
Will it live on for till my kids or my nephew, niece, etc., etc.? And the third piece is it growing?
Hmm.
The vast majority of people go in and just talk about the the growth side, and that is third on my list. They forget the first two. So you should always lead by giving comfort that, I mean, nobody can predict the future, but I am a safe pair of hands. You can trust me with your principal, and I can return that money to you. Second thing
Yeah.
is, I will keep it safe. I will keep it safe for your heirs or for you in 10 years' time. And the third thing, then you come in and say, growth. I'm going to have
Hmm.
28x growth. Yeah,
Hmm.
I can see your nose growing.
Yeah, and the most people do mistake is they talk about growth first, but for family business and the ultra high net worth, it comes the last one actually. Some values and principle, and preserving the wealth is the most important thing. And these family business, they operate in multiple jurisdictions. So most CEOs, they still underestimate the practical problems of operating in multiple legal, tax, and regulatory systems, different regimes in different countries. So what three things they should keep in mind when they know that their business is in different jurisdictions?
So people don't quite get that wealthy people are multi-jurisdictional. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just extraordinary. Uh, and I call it the middle class syndrome. The vast number of wealth advisors or salespeople or bankers are middle class people. And they think wealthy are middle class. They're not. They think differently. Capital and wealthy people are mobile. They're exquisitely mobile. And they can shift. And they do shift. And they will keep on shifting. So anybody who's trying to either extract any investment from a wealthy person or going to work for a family business or is going to do some trading with them, remember that they are mobile, they are agile, they move pretty fast when they decide. Sometimes it can become difficult to move, but I think broadly you should recognize that it's a multi-jurisdictional thing. So where the principal is meeting you, where their homes are, where their companies are, where their family office is incorporated, where their bank accounts are, where their wealth is booked, where their bank is there, where they are getting credit, which countries they are investing in, can be all different. So you need to go in with your eyes wide open and do some research before you go and speak to them.
Hmm, that's right. And in one of your posts, when I was going through that one in one of your work as well, that you mentioned that the world will belong to those who ask better question and connect ideas. So can you elaborate it for our CEOs? Like what is exactly is asking a better question is?
So see, we over the last thousands of years determined intelligence as a way of human intelligence as a way of taking in information, retaining it, and applying it. That's how most of the educational systems are. That's how most of the corporate careers were. But now you've got AI, which does that much better. So
Hmm.
what's in it for you? How does it distinguish you? So the question is that you need to be able to do two, three things that AI can't do very well. One is to ask difficult questions of yourself and others.
Hmm.
The second point is linking disparate things against each other. And the third, which is the most difficult piece, is how do you stop yourself making mistakes? Yeah, these are the three things people have to learn or relearn.
Hmm. There is saying for the Henry Ford that he said, if I would have asked people that what do you want, they would have told faster horses. They would not have told about the car. So asking the right question from the right person to the right person is so important because it can change the entire industry forever. And
You
you
know,
read a lot of
that's what Einstein said. A genius and a child share one trait, curiosity.
hmm,
People don't ask questions. You know why? Because at worst they don't care,
yeah,
and at best they will get answers that they won't like.
yes, that's right. And I
You
want to
need
say to our audience how I got connected to Dr. Bhaskar Dasgupta is that I heard I was listening to his keynote and I loved it. And the way when he was going out, I immediately ran to him and I spoke to him and we discussed that yes, I would like to invite you. So take your chances, go ahead, ask question. You never know what will happen next. If I would not have asked you that day, we would not have got connected like this.
absolutely.
Yeah. And you read lot of books. So what are the top three recommendations for CEO for next coming 5 years, which will take them forward, not learning only from the past?
I'll just suggest that, for me, a person who does not read is a person who's blind. You are relying on your own lived
Hmm.
experiences. And again, frankly, to me, you're stupid. I'm being very honest and blunt. And it just
Yeah.
doesn't mean reading, right? I mean, thick books. It could be anything. It could be fiction. It could be non-fiction. It could be other languages. But read. Ensure
Yeah.
that your mind is constantly challenged, refreshed. You have different experiences, etc., etc. A similar corollary is travel. People
Hmm.
travel and say they go, I saw this tick, 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 tick. And the only reason they would do it is to post it on Instagram.
Yeah.
But have you stood in front of the Colosseum and thought about the guy who made it or who carved the stone? Or if you're there in front of the, you know, um, Cad's sandwich shop in Queens, where the famous Harry Met Sally scene was shot,
Yeah.
people would go there. But think about the food experience, the making of it. Why is that brand so strong? So unpack it a bit more. Do not just go for the photo, upload, click, finish. Unpack it, because to be honest with you, AI will do that much better. It does it much better. How are you as a CEO going to be better? You need to ask those difficult questions. You need to unpack things, look at things from different angles. That's why I'm a very, very strong believer in reading and reading books, because
Hmm.
it guards against you and your experience and your knowledge becoming obsolescent.
That's wonderful. And I would like to show you my library. See this one. I love reading. Like every time my husband goes anywhere, I order it from there, that country. And the best part is that my daughter, when she was young, she used to read. But now she has her own library, and we both are super possessive for our books. So we have unwritten agreement. You can read my books, but you have to put it exactly the same place. And she also yesterday, she was talking to her friend, and I heard she saying, you can read my book in my room, but I'll not give my book to you because I'm very possessive for my books. So I think that's once you start falling in love with reading book, it's an addiction. You cannot stop that one. Like some books, I remember one of my friends gifted from Saudi. I finished it in 2 days. I just couldn't stop. I was reading continuously for like 2 days and I finished that one. So yeah, that's there. That love, I can totally understand when you are saying that. And it's altogether a different world out there. And you love food, actually. That's what I was when I was going through your profile. I love food. So how do you feel, as you mentioned right now, that traveling, eating different food helps us to understand the world better and make better decision? So how do you see eating different food, trying different cuisines helps us to, especially in business, helps us to take better decisions?
So this is a rule that I keep on quoting, and you may have heard me say
Yeah.
this, but a meeting without food should be an email. At end of the day,
Yes.
we are human beings. We are doing
Hmm.
business. We want to trust each other. We want to talk to each other. And food is a great way. You are, you know, uh, you are doing Annadatta. You are Annapurna. You're talking about food, the food gods.
Hmm.
The hearth, the kitchen was considered to be the most important room. Food is the reason why we have the civilization that we have got.
Yeah.
Um, and there's an infinite variety and changes that happen to food. So food as a way of human activity is pretty good. And you know what? I show it around my waist. Um, and I'll give you an example. You were talking about surveys. Look, I mean, the GLP is coming out, and Monjaro and Ozempics are coming out, and there are studies that hedge fund managers who are on this kind of drug are showing less amount of aggression.
Hmm.
So food is something that changes and drives culture. If you read Brodel's magisterial book of the history of civilization, his
Hmm.
first volume, um, he describes history on the basis of food,
Okay.
and that's an amazing way of actually looking at human beings. Show me what you eat, and I'll show you what you are. So yeah, it's a very interesting way of looking at things. And then again, I'm retired, so I
Hmm.
can post about food left, right, and center on LinkedIn and social media, and I don't have to give a toss. People who are salaried, they have to worry about, oh, I can't post about this.
Yeah.
Okay. That goes back to your first question. I'm a chief mischief officer. I have fun.
Yes. That's great. Thank you so much, Dr. Dasgupta. It was super lovely conversation. And before we leave, any message for our CEOs today from your wealth of knowledge?
Um, I'll go back and talk about what I said. Be optimistically paranoid, look after cash, and remember what the Dalai Lama said. My religion is just one thing: kindness.
Hmm.
Have fun. Be happy.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Dasgupta. I love this conversation. And I was making a lot of 3 pages filled. I was making a lot of notes as well. Thank you so much for your time. And
Thank you.
stay
Thank you
tuned.
for
We are
inviting
going
me.
to have, yes, sorry, you were saying something.
Oh, I just said thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. Thank you. And to our lovely audience, thank you so much for staying with us. And I'll share this post and this lot of reels I'll be sharing with you. And stay tuned, subscribe for more such conversation from experts. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Dasgupta.
Thank you.